One final question.
Yes.
Curnow, Curnow.
It's Curnow.
It is
Curnow. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I honestly, I had heard
it's fine.
So many different ways, but no, I want to know.
I know.
Thanks for clarifying that.
All my life, people say Curnow. I guess it looks that way, but officially it's Curnow. Like
Okay.
Jim Curnow is the composer, and now there's a CNN host, Robin Curnow.
Oh.
Yeah, she's on CNN International. Robin Curnow. So, pretty cool.
Well, you're famous by association then.
Right.
So, all right.
The high-profile guys you're talking to, not me, but
No, come on. Be fair to yourself. Yeah. You're so high profile, I came back for a second interview. See? This is...
Well, that's your fault.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, the reason I'm here again, I told you, we barely touched on Empire the first time around.
Right.
And I feel guilty sometimes contacting somebody because of their connection with, like, I want to be truly more interested in you than because you are not Empire, right? I mean, it's not who defines you. And I think I owe it to the people to give them a chance to say whatever they want to say. And then if we get to that other stuff, we get there. And so I thought, hey, can we talk about those years? Can we talk about...
Absolutely. I mean, I'm very proud. It was hard. It's just the best of times and the worst of times. But I'm very proud of everything that we accomplished. And I'd like to try to keep that alive for the sake of the artistic integrity that you put into it. I mean, it was really all about making something that no one else had heard before at that time and going nuts. And I think we achieved that. And so I'd like to remind people what the time was at that point, quintet scene, and just to check it out, check out what was actually happening back then if they had it. So once again, it's like trying to stay relevant, trying to remember that point in history.
Yeah. What year did you join them?
I joined in '86 or '87. It was 80. It was '87. That's what it was. Yeah.
Who did you replace?
I replaced. Tim left, and they were going through a couple of guys, and they weren't particularly happy with anybody. There wasn't a click, mostly because of dealing with Rolf. Rolf was a terrific talent, an unbelievable force when it came to drive ideas and where to funnel the energy. And with that came a bumpy ride. So a lot of other players came in there. It seems to be other performers.
Yeah,
it's a difficult position. You really have to. There's a certain personality. You have to sit there and understand where your place is in the band, and then be able to work with that. So they hadn't found anybody. So I met Rolf at a summer festival called Harkless Park, which is in Connecticut. Dave Bilger and I used to play that. And they basically get New York freelancers up there. And I was working in and out of Connecticut. Started playing with the New Haven Symphony. With that place in New York. So Dave called me and said, hey, we got this big brass thing. We're going to have a set up on stage. We consider Grosso style with Empire brass. And we're going to play a big brass on top of it behind them and do these works. Fireworks. Water music. So I said, sure. And that's where I met Rolf. And he came up and said, hey, you want to come up and audition for the band up to Boston? So I was like, yeah, sure. And that's when it started. And I went to Boston for audition. And then I went from there.
Had you followed the group much before then?
Not really. I mean, it was a Canadian and the Empire Brass. Those are two groups that were really out there in the trenches. And I was more along the lines that the Canadians would come out with something that was like, I really wasn't even in the brass. But the Empire Brass, I appreciated. I did hear of them.
Yeah.
And I knew Rolf, of course, and Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And so I maybe had a couple of LPs, but I was into being an orchestra trumpet. That's what I was going to do. I was playing excerpts and wanting to take auditions. And this dropped in my lap, and all of a sudden, I'm in brass.
Yeah. What was that audition like?
It was a little weird. I mean, I went up on stage and I played through excerpts. And they wanted to hear that. I played an etude. I forget what etude it was. Played a couple excerpts. And then the 5 of them were out. It was at Boston University. The 5 of them were out in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And Rolf came up on stage with his horn, and we played together. And it was actually, it wasn't bad. He was kind of joking around, and we were reading through some of the quintet stuff. And he didn't want to play very much. And he hated playing duets and things like that. But they wanted to see if I could blend.
Right.
And they were coming up on a pretty important tour. They were going to tour Russia. So they needed to put somebody in the position. So, they said after that, I was maybe an hour. And they said, why don't you come up to Tanglewood and spend a week up there? And that's where they were at the time.
Mm-hmm. And
play with the band, sit in, send us some charts. And, So I drove up to Stockbridge, Massachusetts. And I'm driving around looking for Rolf's place. And he has a beautiful house. He had this barn, renovated barn, and the house is a mile long. And just in this gorgeous spot that he bought when he was moving to it. And I'm driving around looking for it. I have no idea what I should. I keep calling his house, leaving a message. No one's there. Rolf, this is Jeff. I'm looking for your place. I don't know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I left. I stayed for an hour. I said, all right, now I have my Empire Brass story.
Yeah.
I couldn't find, nobody was, I thought maybe this was a hoax. So I just turned around and went home. And I got a phone call like that night. And they said, where were you? I said, I drove around. I left messages on the machine. Yeah. Nobody was here. But did you drive back home? Yeah, we did. Okay. And then I drove up the next day again. And I was able to sit there and play with group for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was hired.
Mm-hmm. What was that first experience with sitting in that group? And I'm asking because, I didn't even think about this until I was talking to Mark Reese, and he told me about his first experience and how it was just like eye-opening about things. I'm curious about your experience with that.
Well, I played with the group. I was not in that mode. I was able to keep up, but at the time, I thought I was doing okay, but at the time, there were sound issues. I just wasn't blending. There's a specific sound that group had. It was forged basically by Rolf and Sam. Mm-hmm. And their concept was, we're an orchestral brass, not a quintet that huddles together and plays, at each other. We stand up out front and blow to the audience as if we're the brass section in the orchestra. And that's kind of snappy. And I kind of was into this thing where, moving around and playing and doing this, like Rolf would call the New York. So we ended up, I rehearsed for a week. It was, eye-opening. I mean, you had to hit the ground running. Mm-hmm. The charts were hard. So I spent a lot of time practicing. Those guys would be hanging, but I'd be learning the book. And then we did a concert after a week. It was like a week and a half. And Doug Sheldon was there. He was our connection with one of the artists. And he came up and said, yeah, the group sounds good. Yeah, it's great. Fine. But he told Rolf, the guy didn't blend. He didn't fit in. He's moving around too much. He didn't look like anybody else. So they said, here's what you got to do. You hold your horn in one position, just like Rolf. You do not move. Make sure you got your bell up, and that this is the way it's going to work, or you're not going to do it.
Wow.
And so that was number one. Okay, so I just changed. Okay, fine. I dug what the band was doing. I liked the sound. I wanted to be a part of this. I really wanted to do it. It was very challenging, but it seemed like this would be a really cool thing to do. And I'm working through, everything's working out okay. And about week 3, we're in all fun, and we're playing through the Scarlatti. His father did a lot of it when he was terrific. These Scarlatti pianos. And we were doing this one particular Scarlatti piece. And it was a really tricky second trumpet part. And I had to do all these frills. Jumping around on the horn. So I'm playing through, and I left frills. I just didn't have time to work. And Rolf stops and where did Phil? He said, I really didn't have time to work, but it's the time. I'm working on West Side Story. I'm working on this shite Bergman. I'm just that I didn't. He said, have it by tomorrow or you're fired. I was like, all right. So the first, I was just so angry. I was so angry because I was working so hard. And I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I sat in his bar. I worked on that for probably 3 hours. Came back the next day and nailed it.
Nice.
Just nailed it. Played it down, nailed it. He looked at me and said, good. All right, let's move on. And it was, I felt some satisfaction, but at the same time, can't you just please say, great,
right?
You really must have worked on this thing. But that's the way it was. You kind of were expected to be breaking your own records every time you walked in. That was expected. No one was going to say, hey, great job, you came in there and you were ready to get the roots. And what that taught me was something that I couldn't do. And now all of a sudden, I jump a hurdle. And that I carried through my whole life. That moment has affected me for the rest of the time I'm in it. So I've always said, no, I can do this. I can make it. And that constantly happens in that group.
Yeah. You talk about getting angry. First reaction is and I can't imagine that anybody wouldn't. The amount of pressure you're under and not knowing if you're going to survive the day, right? But how many people have that kind of resolve that you showed? You think about people these days going for who could survive that, and maybe that kind of atmosphere doesn't exist or couldn't exist anymore. This shows an awful lot of grit to be able to do that.
Well, that's kind of who I am. For me, I looked at the situation. I thought, well, it took one up, and that would earn respect rather than me getting angry, saying you're asking too much. If I one up by doing it, then that was a big leap. And he was able to look at me and say, all right, you're on board. You're part of the team. And I felt that. There was a big challenge where I was the only one walking out on stage with the West Side Story music. Everybody else had it memorized, and I would walk out on stage with the music. And it was another one of the things where Sam came up and he said, you got to memorize that. Sorry, you couldn't go out on stage and rock it. I didn't use music. So I remember I had one summer, there was a pool table in my ex-wife's basement of her home. It's like in the middle of Kansas. I had like 2 weeks. And I remember walking around that pool table, listening and playing and speaking the thing on my face, going through it over, because I was going to learn this. I was going to learn this because it was going to me. It's another thing where I walk out there, bearing on with me. I don't want this to be one guy. I want to be able to move the band. I want to be able to do this. And once again, this is the guy for the gig. This is the right guy for the gig. That's what they were thinking every time I came through.
So you're getting it from Rolf, you're getting some from Sam. What about the other guys at that time? Or did you get any encouragement along the way, or was it all 4 against 1? Or...
No, it was for my first year. I really felt like there were some tours where I was just walking away because they had all been. And Marty was in the band at the time. He was with the Canadians. They were all seasoned pros. They could get on a bus and drive for 18 hours, get off, play a concert. I mean, it was insane. Just driving around in a mobile home, and sometimes we're playing with a basketball hoop literally right here on an elevated stage in the gym. The next day we're playing with the Detroit Symphony. It was just that kind of insanity. And they were all pretty seasoned at it. And sometimes they were just playing, trying to just figure out how to do it. It took about a year. So, I mean, yeah, they would kind of disappear. And I'd just go back to my hotel room and sit there and say, all right, what did we do wrong here? How can I make this better? I really wanted to be, a part of that. I wanted to have that in my fingers. Just, have the ease of being travel. It was a challenge, but I really wanted it. It was hungry. It was interesting. There was so much fun about it. I really wanted that. So, that was part of it.
Yeah. And you got it?
Yeah, I did. I became a part of this thing, and I knew it wasn't going to last forever. But I knew what we were doing was crazy great. It was hard, and man, there were moments that I wanted to quit. There were moments that I was just tearing my hair out. There were moments I was having so much fun and laughing so hard that it was like when you're back in high school. It was, just, like I said, the best of times and the worst. And you had to take all of it. You had to be there and understand that someday I'm going to look back on it. And at least I'll have these CDs in this moment like we were doing it better than you.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah.
So that was always on my mind.
Yeah. How long are you in the group?
8 years.
So I heard Empire live the first time, 89 or 90. So you would have been there in that. And you guys came and played with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra, or at least I think you were with the orchestra.
Were you in the band?
No, I had just moved to Indy during that time, and a band director friend of mine said, hey, there's this group called Empire. And honestly, I hadn't had a clue at that point. And I think you guys started with Bolero out in the audience. And am I remembering that right?
I don't know that we played. I don't know that we played Bolero. We played. I remember walking in the audience with something. It was like a Gabrielli thing or something like that.
Yeah, Rolf and you, I think, were out, but Rolf was right in front of me, playing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the first time I'd seen a G trumpet or whatever he was playing at the time.
Right.
And what a great show! Yeah, I just remember it was phenomenal. It's like my eyes had been opened at that point, and back then, of course, they were still albums that you sought out,
right,
or CDs. But I started to find what I could. But yeah, I look back at that, and Canadian, you guys did. I mean, it's not an understatement to say that you guys have contributed, both groups, tremendously to not just brass quintet repertoire, but just how to put on a show, how to entertain. You could have come out in a semicircle with stands and played, and it would have been great. Both groups tore down that fourth wall. And I think, that was just brilliant to do it that way.
We actually dealt with a lot of criticism. I think both groups did. I can't speak for the Canadians, but there would be ensembles, which I will not do, who would say, this isn't real brass quintet. You got a music written for the brass quintet. I don't think we do every once in a while. Maybe we do you all. We did the Etler one, believe it or not. And but it was all brass.
Right.
And so people would say, first of all, you're setting the brass quintet back hundreds of years because we want new music. You want to be able to come out and show people what real brass quintet music is. And, and I remember Sam and Rolf sitting there shaking their heads saying, how are we supposed to make a living with this? Nobody's going to want to sit there and hear that.
Yeah.
And they were right. And the Canadians were the first ones to really put on those shows. They were great. I mean, I went to see the Canadian brass, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe they would get out there and sing falsetto. They would joke around, then they'd play these really beautiful Bach things. And I mean, that to me was just, look at that. That is, you know, compared to the New York, you know, brass quintet with Bob Nagle and
right.
Aaron, just, this was like a step in another direction that was just mind blowing what these guys were doing. And then Empire kind of jumped on top of that and said, yeah, well, now we're going to do it this way. And we became the rock and roll group. They were kind of the elderly station, and they had all kind of dressed up in leather. We let our hair grow. They wanted that rock and roll feeling in order to be out this time. And so we go out there and just be crazy, dangerous, nuts, playing as loud as possible. Every time we did a concert, it was 2.5 hours. An organ and brass concert. And I had to look out in the audience and these people were
oh my gosh.
But Rolf was feeling good. It's like, get this piece up, let's go. Hammering it.
Oh my.
It was that kind of feel. It was that crazy. And we were all into it. Just jamming down their throats.
Well, okay, so go back a couple of minutes. You made a statement. I'm thinking, okay, what if you put the Ingolf doll in front of an audience? Right. I guess all 5 people are going to be thrilled that you played that piece. And then saying that you set the brass quintet back a few hundred years. Let's look at what the brass quintet looked like in 1650, right?
Oh, I know, right.
You know, let's see, what did the tuba look like, or what did the horn look like?
Right.
So it's kind of a silly statement. But look, yeah, I think I've come to realize that you guys gave permission just to play great music. It didn't have to be commissioned by some great composer for brass quintet to show their compositional skills. It was great transcriptions, both groups. And did you do any of those? Did you do any arranging at some point?
I did not. And that was the thing that you signed off on. I mean, I have to say, I mean, Rolf and Sam would always, they were like Lennon and McCartney. And we could come in with ideas, but they would have their names on they would split the royalty. That was the way it is. And I knew that when I went in. And I said, okay. So if I came with an idea or an arrangement, it would be like, well, we'll take this into consideration. And I'd do something else with it. I did an arrangement of Bernstein on the town street, which we actually played once, but it was impossible to get permission from the Bernstein to do it. So I couldn't publish it. I couldn't do it, but it was fun for me to do. And Rolf actually played second on it. It was the only time that Rolf played second in the group. And we did it on one concert. Yeah. And that was the only time we played that. I've written some pieces, just some jazzy kind of things. Now, the only thing I ever did was put on a happy face.
Yeah.
On one of the CDs.
So you've auditioned. You said it took you like a year to settle into the group. So once you're there, who's the next person to enter the group?
Marty left. Marty left the group and went back to Vancouver. I think he just had enough of the road. He had enough of I don't know how many years he was with the Canadian. And it's hard. It's really hard. My first year with the group, I think we did almost 100 concerts. And the way we were traveling, we were literally on the road. We could have Japan for 4 or 6 weeks. We'd come home for a week and then disappear on a Midwest tour, driving around Winnebago for a month. It was really insane. And he had a family. And after years of it, I think he just got tired of it. Yeah. And he just decided to go back and he won the job in Vancouver, moved back there. And he's very happy.
Yeah. And
then Eric came for us. That's when my life came.
So, yeah, I'm curious. I'm kind of wondering, as you're seeing somebody new come in, if you're like wanting to take them off to the side and say, here's what you need to expect. Because I've been there, done that. Don't step in this hole, right? But okay, so how did your life change?
Uh, I love Eric. I really do, man. I had such a good time. I mean, Marty was fun. Marty and I would room together, and we had a good time. But Eric was on like the different level. I was the youngest guy in the group. And then Eric came in, and all of a sudden he was the youngest guy, but we were closer in age. So, for me, trying to relate to whatever was going on, I'm still a young guy. Now, Eric comes in. And then, when I started palling around with him, anybody who comes into a group that small is going to bring their own kind of thing. And then it changes the group. And all of a sudden the group becomes a little different because there's only time. So some guy will come in and start throwing all these crazy great music, his horn solos. And, he would be astounding on stage. Marty was crazy good. Eric would go out there and do these things. But then when the concert was over, it got crazy. Which was so much fun for me. That now I had a guy I could pal around with, and we go out and hang out, and I was just laughing a lot.
Yeah.
When Eric joined the band, it became just seeing his personality, working with Rolf and the rest of the group. And he was a very positive guy. He had a lot of energy, and he was like me in that, hey, I'm not going to do this forever. Let's make this really something epic. And so we were always out there doing it. And he even brought more of that because he really would go out there and go for it. And you want to sell the message, grasp on it. And there's always music, such a musical player. And, but it was, like I said, it was really different. And we're still in contact today. I miss him. And when he left the group, it really, everything.
Yeah. But, okay, so I want to back up a second. You said when a new guy comes in, it changes the group. Let's go back to how you changed the group. In retrospect, how did that group evolve with you there?
Well, that's hard. That's hard for me to say because I wasn't in it before. So when I came in, I think they kind of wanted to mold me into Tim Morrison. And to some extent, I did that. I kind of played that role. I'm not as good looking as Tim, and a very different player. But
you have better hair than he does.
But Tim had this real mystique, and it was this way that he was very tall, and he looked like he walked out of a Hollywood movie set. And I kind of came in there and wanted to do my own thing, but I had to conform, fit that mold. But I think I had a lot of other things I was doing at the time. I was cartooning at the time. I had a very different personality in terms I was more outgoing. I could sing on the CD. I guess what I would say I brought to the group was less seriousness in the sense that I could make everybody laugh, and it kind of took maybe the group into a lighter direction. Because I remember we'd laugh through sessions sometimes recording stuff and tell us that we could really do things on that. And I'd like to think that I kind of was the guy who was instigating that.
And there are a couple of recordings, and I don't remember the repertoire, but it's like a dark studio. Everybody's in black. And I can't remember. That may have been Mark with the group at that point. But I'm thinking about recording sessions and what that was like. Of course, when you're on the road playing pieces, that's the best way to prepare for the studio because you just know the rep inside and out, and you've played it, everything about it. But did that make a difference when you got to the studio, or was it?
What you said makes perfect sense, and it's the way everybody else does it. If you're a rock and roll band or even a comedian, you go out on the road, you craft the show, and you go into a studio. on stage and record it. We did it the exact opposite.
Really?
We would every summer we'd get together at Curnow, and we were at Curnow, run the Empire Band. The summers were the most stressful. It was really tough. And we would create and craft a show. And we record it. We record this new music. And then we take it out on the road. The first place we go is Japan. And because nobody in the United States would hear you. So we take it to Japan. And the first 12 concerts were like, all right, which one of these pieces are we going to drop? I mean, how are we going to get through this? Do we need to take this repeat? I mean, we just go out there and be exhausted after these shows, but we kind of work out all those concerts. But it was after we recorded all the tunes. So recording the tunes is one thing. You're there, you can take takes. But then when you have to plan down the concert, that's when we would craft the show, come back to stage, sometimes to Europe. And we had the concert by about concert 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So it was weird. It was opposite. But it actually kind of worked, because then we could take the CD to Japan, and they loved the CDs.
Yeah.
And we could sell it while we were playing the tunes live.
Yeah. You ever record a tune, then tour with it and be like, this is, what we ended up with is so much better than what's on the CD?
Yeah. I mean, things would usually get faster. We just go out in the road. We really work on the CDs. The CD would be nice and crisp, but then halfway through the touring season, the tune would be like 4 or 5 clicks faster and getting faster. Because we just play it over and over again. It's like a Broadway show, and we never rehearse. We just play concerts. And as you're playing it, it just gets smoother. The Mozart was the biggest. Had that was when we recorded the Mozart, and we're banging down the houses trying to figure out, I think it's good now, people just playing a lot of low stuff.
Right.
Then we took it out on the road. By halfway through, we were really roaring on stuff, and it became the second nature.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I would be thinking, we should record it now. We can record it about 10 clicks faster, and it would sound more exciting. We were selling.
I was listening earlier today. I was actually listening to Dance of the Comedians, I think it was. Let me make sure that's right. Yeah, Dance of the Comedians. And holy cow, I mean, that's kind of lightning fast already. And so I'm imagining, could that get any faster? And the precision, you guys it's so clean. And it's not just clean. I mean, it's musical. But you get the respect of brass players knowing just how good you have to be to make it sound that clean.
That tune, Rolf would do that on the road almost every performance. And he'd nail it. And to me, that was one of the times, Rolf would do things on stage where I'd almost have to put my hand down. I just couldn't believe it. And that was one of the pieces. And that's something that was special about what he could do. He could double tongue through those phrases, and I could never understand it. Just watching him, there's nothing about being in a group, and you're watching Marty, Sam, Scott Hartman, Eric, Rolf. And Rolf could be off his game, but one time we were in Fresno, California, and Rolf got everything stolen out of his hotel room. We landed. He went to the airport to pick up his girlfriend. He came back 3 hours later. Everything was gone. Everything. His horns. The only thing he left with his toothbrush. Everything was gone. And Rolf, at the time, was so angry. But I said, well, what are we going to do? Can we cancel the tour? I said, I'm not playing your parts. And he said, no, we're going to play. I'm going to make some phone calls. The next night, we were on stage. He was playing in a borrowed tails with borrowed trumpets, including G pick. I don't know. I remember where he had it. He played the show from memory. Didn't drop a note.
Wow.
Because, I mean, I'm just thinking this is going to be a test. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I walked around stage, and when he could focus, it was really unbelievable. And one of the tunes was that, Dance to the Comedians.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't fazed by any of it. He was so driven that he went out there, and I remember going up afterwards, and like I said, he didn't do my compliment. Nobody could think of it. I said, oh, that was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. It's unbelievable. He was smoking at the time. He was there. He said, whatever.
Oh my God.
And that was, he just, that's the way he was. I mean, he was just, even after he'd do something in a recording session that was unbelievable, and he listened to it, he kind of would, it was almost like it just wasn't good enough. It just wasn't good enough. Mm. And you could see that in him somehow. There's fire underneath him. It's got to be better than that. But yeah, he's done some good things.
Yeah. You mentioned Scott. I'll let you know. I've got him on the calendar. August 5th, I get to talk to Scott.
Oh, good.
And I'm really looking forward to that. I miss the opportunity to interview Sam. Of course, that was a tragic loss. But and Rolf too. I mean, a tragic loss for the trumpet community. But okay, so you're in the group. You're having a great time, but there's something that says to you inside, it's time to go. Right? What was that? Was an opportunity knocking on the door, or you just decided it's time?
It was, things had changed. Sam, I should say that Sam Palacios taught me so much. You mentioned his name. I mean, I can't leave him out of this discussion because he was an essential part of that group. Rolf had the energy. Sam handled the nuts and bolts. Rolf was a sports car. He drove the sports car. Sam put the sports car together and made it, and made sure that we were communicating with record companies correctly. And we're trying to keep things, making sure that we were set up at Boston University and that Columbia Artist Management was taking care of it. All the nuts and bolts of that were all Sam. Sam really ran the show. Rolf drove as fast as he possibly could and was an impressive driver. But what Sam taught me about music theory, what he taught me about jazz, what he taught me about discipline, what he taught me about pedagogy, all that stuff. I never saw anyone who was so incredibly focused on being a great musician, not just a good musician, just being the best musician. And for as good as he was, he'd be walking around airports with a mouthpiece, buzzing mouthpiece. He'd be sitting there trying to figure out how to get better at jazz, how to get better at arrangement, how to get better at what's the next CD we can do if we really knock it. It was crazy. I was inspired by everything.
Yeah.
Sam was really special. And he left the group. And that's really what changed everything. Mm-hmm. And I remember Eric and I sitting in a diner and Sam announced him leave. And we were shaking our heads and what? And because this left Rolf in control. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know what was going to happen. We said, we'll just stay on it and try to figure out, see if we can direct Rolf and see if we can take over the role.
Right.
And it didn't happen. And it just kind of got crazier and things started coming apart a little bit more. And all of a sudden we're out of the view. Once that education thing went, Tanglewood went in the summer. And that was a big part of our income.
Yeah.
And Telarc was starting to scratch their heads. And now that Sam had left and trying to figure out, how we can do this, how we can put this together. That combination of Rolf and Sam made for a really great working machine. And now that wasn't there. So Eric left. I mean, I think Scott left after. And Stan left. Scott said, well, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. He'd been in the group for a long time. Then Eric left. I was the last one in the original group. I just couldn't do it. And I was just going to stop, go try to freelance and do something. I had enough of the road anyway. I was ready for something else. It was really hard. And it just seemed like I wasn't really sure what the group was about anymore. It didn't seem to have that focus that we had. And so that's when the door opened in Dallas. Dave Rubin called me to come down and spend a year playing principal. They could hire me.
Yeah.
And so I did. And then I ended up staying there.
Did it seem like a walk in the park compared to what you'd been doing for 8 years?
Oh, no. You mean playing wise?
Yeah.
It was very different. When I walked out on stage, one of the first concerts I played with the Dallas Symphony was Symphony Fantastique. And it was about 20 minutes to sit on stage. You don't do anything. So I'm sitting there on stage. Now, I'm used to playing 2 hours straight, 2 hours plus straight. And I'm sitting on stage and you get to that movement. There's two movements that I'm doing. And my lips start swelling up. So I grabbed my mouthpiece and I'm pushing my mouthpiece into my lip.
Oh, gosh.
From swelling. It's like, I'm just not used to sitting here on stage. And it was really very different. And I come in and within like 8 or 10 bars, it was starting to feel okay. But it was really physically very different to do. Sure. Also, I'm playing on different equipment. I was on a bigger mouthpiece and it's much louder. And it's just a really different thing. I've done it before, so I came back quickly.
Sure.
But it's really not the same.
Yeah.
It's really not the same.
Yeah. What was it like for you to turn in your notice with Empire? Was that, well, I mean, you've got different people in there. Rolf is the last one. How do you tell him you're gone?
Yeah, it was weird. It was at a recording session. It was the last CD I made. It was this Celtic CD thing that we did. Very bizarre, very strange CD. And
I loved it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about passages. I'm talking about the Celtic. Oh, you like that one?
Yeah.
Because to me, it seemed like, and that's what Rolf was. Passages was Rolf's baby. Rolf wanted to do this for so many years until our time. He said, okay, let's do it. And that became really a pretty big hit for us. And then he came at them with this Celtic after we had been a couple of years. And they said, I don't know. But they said, okay, well, let's go with it. And it was very reflective. It was all these different kind of things that in a river dance kind of style Rolf wanted to do. And I thought, this would be a good thing. So I told him at the end of the season. Yeah. The whole group was new, and they were all great players.
Yeah.
But I think he knew it was coming, and I said, look, thanks. I'm done. Dallas Music School. So I'm going to go out there and do that. And it was weird. You never quit without some place to go. Because if you get in an argument with Rolf, then he's writing scripts. Yeah. So you just didn't want that kind of thing. So I knew I could make this bridge if Rolf all of a sudden said, well, I got to talk to you about money because you didn't do this and this. I said, whatever. I can deal with it. So I made sure that Dallas Music told me. Right. And he said, okay. I said, you still have the band credit card? I said, yeah, I did. I got out my wallet. I said, keep it. Go buy yourself a nice pair of cowboy boots.
Did you?
I said, yeah. I said, okay. Sorry. I went and got a nice pair of boots, cut the card up, and
that's awesome.
But it was kind of cool. I didn't expect that. But I think, like I said, I think he knew it was coming. And Mark jumped in, I think at that time. Oh, no, it was Mark.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out.
Yeah.
And then I think Mark Reese came in after that. And Mark had been studying with us for years. What perfect.
Yeah.
He's been in the group. He was the second trumpet in the group for the longest.
Yeah. Yeah, I interviewed him last year too. And, well, first of all, an amazing player.
Yeah.
I love his sound.
Great.
Love his sound.
Fabulous.
And just a nice guy. But yeah, when you said the other trumpet, that's exactly how he described himself too. But
right.
Wow. This has been great.
Thank you.
I wished I had pushed record and caught all that, but
yeah, me too.
Can you do that all again? We push record this. I have a fear. I keep glancing up in the corner to make sure that the recording's still going because I'm thinking it's going to crash just when you say that thing that is like pure gold.
I've been recording here at home, and lately I've got Premiere Pro on this computer, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do a couple different camera angles. So I set up like 3 different camera angles, and then I got another device, a Zoom H2, which I have over.
Yeah.
So but I got to hit all 4 of these before I play, and then when I stop, I got to turn them all off. Right. And then hit them all again. Right. And I can't tell you how many times I get to the editing, when I get to put it all together, it's like, I didn't push record on this.
Yeah. Thank you again for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
For sharing everything. Well, it's fun for me too. I still feel like a kid in a candy store doing stuff like this.
Yeah, good. You're good at it. You're good at it. Don't keep doing it. You're just going to get better and better. And I think I think these are important. You can come back and interview different things. You can have another subject. It's like
yeah.
Take another trumpet player and say, let's talk about high notes. Let's talk about low notes. Let's talk about this or that.
Well, I want to recognize what you just said. I appreciate that you complimented my style on this because honestly, I just feel like I'm having conversations with people,
But it's not that. And there is something to what you're asking, the questions that you're asking that make it fun for me, and I imagine fun for your other guests, because they're good questions. If you get bad questions, it just goes on forever, and it's like, it doesn't make any sense. How am I going to answer this? So all your stuff is just really perfect.
Well, thank you. For University of Indianapolis, I filled out a little online interview. There's just this morning. It's for our school paper. And the last question was, if you could interview anybody living or dead, and I actually answered, I loathe questions like this.
It's true.
And then I went on and I changed it because I don't want to have to pick one. There's so many. But that's the kind of question I try to avoid. It's like, hey, Jeff, what size mouthpiece do you play?
Right.
Well, nobody cares really about that sort of thing, right?
Right.
Some people do, but that's not this. That's not this show.
It's not this topic, and you're able to focus in on one topic and get everything out of that topic, and I think that's great. Perfect.
Okay. Hey, again, thank you. Stay healthy,
then
please.
Thank you for the shirt. I didn't get to say anything about the shirt, so should I say something about the shirt?
Yeah. Well, you just did. It's the best thing you could do.
I'll say I did an interview with you. Take a picture.
That would be great. That would be great. Post that on your Facebook page or Instagram or whatever.
So, will do.
Cool, man. All right. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.